all the time in the book community, we always talk about like, oh, what type of bookmarks do you use? Or how do you like bookmark a page? Do you do dog ear? Do you use like random things for a bookmark, or do you use a regular bookmark? Does anybody just... That's my bookmark. This is my bookmark. I will have days where I'm just sitting on my bed and I'm like, I flip the book over and I'll be on TikTok for 5 hours with my book in my bed, just sitting like this. Does anybody else just do this as a bookmark?
Before I say anything, I am a proponent of people growing and changing. I always have been. Again, as I've always said, I hope everybody who's racist becomes non-racist or dies. With that being said, when the people make apologies, it is not for you people to go and be like, yes, I forgive you. Well, you can't. The apology was not for you. You do not have the ability to forgive them, I fear. And another thing, I do think it's kind of odd how normalized, like, being racist when you're younger is. It's weird that people think that that's normal, because it isn't. And people are like, oh yeah, sometimes you da-da-da. And I understand people are products of their environment, da-da-da. I understand all of that. But I hope that y'all realize the other kids, the kids of color that grow up with you, they don't ever, I mean ever, forget the shit that you said to them. They don't forget the shit that you did. You forget. You forget and you move on and you move past it, and they don't. I grew up being the only black girl in my entire grade until high school, I believe. And y'all, I don't even mean, there wasn't even a mixed girl in my entire grade. I was the only black girl, period. And I'm not saying that my experience, is representative of everyone's experience, but I remember everything. I remember every single thing. I remember when my first grade teacher held me after school to interrogate me because someone had stolen something from her. It wasn't fucking me. I remember when I wore my natural hair to school for the first time, and the first thing some kid said to me was, why does your hair look like that? You look like a poodle. I remember when someone once shoved their fucking hand in my hair without asking me, and then proceeded to remove their hand from my head because there's moisturizer in it and wipe it off on their shirt and being like, oh my God, your hair's so greasy. I remember I once had like a crush on this boy who was Asian. And he liked me as well, and people made fun of us because they were like, your babies would be so ugly because if black people and Asian people have kids together, they're ugly. First of all, we're fucking 12. I remember people making fun of the food I brought to school, people questioning me like I was a black Persian patient zero and speaking for the entire race. I'm 22 now. All the moments clear as fuck in my head. Clear as fuck. And again, so the people who do and say those things, I hope they don't do that anymore. And I do hope they grow and change. But at the same time, for people to act like it's just a blip in their life and, we've moved on and moved past it, you have terrorized people. You have done irreparable psychological damage to some people. And it annoys me that it's not looked at with that level of like, you've affected somebody. It's not just like, haha, you said a silly little racist thing. No, people remember that shit for a long time, maybe forever. And so I think that's what pisses me off when other people go and accept apologies on behalf of groups that they cannot accept apologies for, because you don't get it in the simplest way. You do not get it, because it's quite literally not comparable to being made fun of for anything else. Like, I just feel like having that big of an impact on people, on kids of color, should not be viewed as such a small little blip in the I just was being silly. But yeah, and then people will be like, well, you can't blame them because they were like 12 or 14. I was also 12. I was 12 too. So would I blame the adult version of themselves? Well, no, probably not. But I can still be like, that still matters. It still matters. Like, if you really think about it, winning an Olympic gold medal is crazy. That's the crazy thing to happen to you, because you just won the competition that goes, oh yeah, as of right now, you're the best in the world. Alive. The best alive at this thing. What the fuck? And I feel like for the individual sports specifically, I don't know how that doesn't go to your head. I don't know how. And then with the swimmers are always in like 84 events. And the ones that are goated, oh, you've been the best in the world for like 12 years. Undisputed. Like nobody like you've been the best. What the fuck? And then I think about gymnastics, and it's like all around gold medal. Simone Biles, you will always be famous. There's multiple things within the sport Nobody does all of the things collectively better than you. Nobody does it. What? Oh, I know you can't tell them shit. I know you can't. And good for them. And honestly, and good for them. Like, I saw a tweet that said, Noah Lyles has taught me that I can be a hater as long as when the time comes, I stand on business. And well, yes. And it only happens every 4 years. So for the next 4 years, people can't touch it. Like, yeah, there's the world championships, but like the Olympics is like the best of the world championships. Like, oh my God. That's why it will never, when people are like, oh my God, they only got silver. Oh, sorry, they're only the second best in the entire world at this thing. Like, get the fuck out of there. Like, what? The way people act like that's flopping is crazy to me. 2 out of the world. And you're like, I feel like they could have done better. Barely. Oh, I feel bad for those people who just got their Eras Tour show canceled, because I know that they trekked through the 9 circles of hell, aka Ticketmaster, to get those tickets. Ticketmaster, they can never make me like you. They can never make me like you, Ticketmaster. But oh my God, because I know that, like, for those girlies, that's an event. That's an event for those girlies. And I know how excited I get for concerts. I remember in I think I was supposed to go see Harry Styles in 2020, Love on Tour. And then this crazy silly thing happened where no one could go outside anymore. So my show got canceled. And I was so sad. Granted, I got to go 2 years later, but I went nevertheless. But it's like you plan everything, like your transportation. Oh my God, some people probably flew there too. Oh no. And like, granted, absolutely, they should cancel the show if there are terrorism threats. Absolutely, 100%. But imagine you're like 12, they're like, oh, you can't go anymore, sorry. Oh no. It's just because in my brain, I'm like, there's like hundreds, thousands perhaps, of like 14-year-old girls who are so sad right now.
Jordan Childs was stripped of her bronze medal because of 4 seconds. Almost a week ago, Jordan Childs won a bronze medal for her floor routine in gymnastics, creating this all-black podium that we all love and know and celebrated. It was originally thought that Childs had lost the medal, but after the U.S. placed an inquiry with the scoring team because they didn't give her difficulty initially, it was discovered that they had made a mistake and that Childs won the bronze. We all cheered and hooped and hollered, and pictures were taken and articles were written, and we all started to move on as the Olympics is drawing to a close, up until within the last 24 hours. Because within the last 24 hours, the International Olympics Committee ruled that Childs has to give the medal back, not because she did anything wrong, like broke a rule or was caught doing something illegal, like doping or something. No, because the inquiry was placed 4 seconds too late. Which means that she did everything right, and not one but 2 committees have failed her now, stripping her of the bronze that she rightfully earned in the first place. Which is really the cherry on top of one of the most racist Olympics I have ever seen in at least my recent memory. Every athlete at this Olympics deserved better than what they got, despite the fact that they all showed up and showed out. And to Jordan Childs, you're still that girl. And that's still an all-black podium, and they can't take that from you. Y'all know that new trend? If the bedriding girls knew that I did XYZ, and the XYZ is usually like some horrific thing, like there was like a dead animal in my room. Okay, the reason that people are sharing their ABC XYZ horrific thing that they did or experienced or went through is not to compare the two. It's because it's not actually like a funny, cute, quirky thing to be so sad or in turmoil or depressed that you can't move and you're in bed rotting. Like, we have this weird thing about mental illnesses where we feel the need to romanticize them or try to take some of the edge off by like calling them something they aren't or making them sound cutesy or nice. Kind of like how people say, oh, I have OCD, when they mean that they're just like neat and tidy as a person and not actually obsessive compulsive disorder and all the things that come with that. Or how Girl Dinner went from like a quirky-ish thing to like a thinly veiled ED. Bed rotting is starting to exist in that same sphere of like cutesy mental illness things that actually aren't so cutesy when you take them out of this sphere of existence. Being so depressed that you're in bed rotting away isn't, oh my gosh, I was so tired, so I like didn't pick up my takeout bag at the end of the night. Being so depressed that you can't get out of bed to brush your teeth, to take care of your own personal hygiene, to clean your space and the things within it is a serious mental illness. It's not something cutesy or fun. And people just feel the need to remind us that gently from time to time because we have a tendency to forget often. I remember after the last election when y'all were like, listen to black women, trust black women, follow black women, blah, 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 because y'all genuinely thought and acted like it was our responsibility to save y'all. And after you gave us that responsibility and that labor, I briefly thought maybe you'd have some empathy for us. Not that you'd follow us willy-nilly, because no one wants that, but that you'd understand that we have lived experiences that shape our decisions and perspective, and maybe if nothing else, you could at least respect that. And I thought after years of us showing up in liberation movement after liberation movement around the world, even when people don't show up for hours, y'all could at least accept us as allies or at least acknowledge our different perspectives. But ever since Kamala Harris started running for president and black women were like, hey, she's a candidate I can get behind. She's not perfect, but she's what we got. Y'all have called black women across the board everything but a child of God. And I'm not telling y'all to vote for Kamala. Y'all do you. You feel how you feel. That's your business. But the language I have seen in comment sections, in my comment sections, in the comment sections of other big creators that y'all swore you would always listen to because you appreciate their perspective and intersectionality, the videos that I've seen made, all of it is appalling. But putting my disgust aside, I genuinely want to know, what are we supposed to do then? What is the plan? Or better yet, how did y'all rectify the moral conflict that clearly doesn't live in you, but lives in us? Because I know that we live in a two-party system, because respectfully, y'all's third-party option is not going to win, where the other side never misses an election, and it's led by a guy with essentially a cult following. And I know that if that guy gets back in office, he's going to make life as unbearable as possible for everybody who is not a straight white male. He wants education to be inaccessible. He wants to ban mask wearing. He doesn't care about black maternal mortality rates. He doesn't want us to have reproductive rights or freedoms at all. He would crucify LGBTQ people. And on Palestine, he has said, and I quote, Israel should finish the job. And I know this because we've lived through this before. And he's already told y'all he plans on making it worse. On the other hand, I don't just want to vote for somebody who has been a part of an administration that has let this G side go on for as long as it has. I don't. So I'd love to sit this out as an act of protest, but that means the other guy is almost guaranteed to win, and I can't morally live with that either. So I thought, as did many other black folk, especially black women, that we were going with like the most logical option here. Do we love it? No. But is it what we can swallow? Sure. But apparently, we're wrong. In fact, we're so wrong that even thinking that means that we're bad people who never cared about anything in the first place. So since y'all have all the answers this election cycle, y'all tell us what to do. Or better yet, at least tell us how you're sleeping at night. Because y'all clearly have it. Because otherwise, while we might not agree, y'all could at least call us by our names instead of anything outside of them. Before y'all jump me, let me be clear. I am not saying we need to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that she is good or right or any of those things. In fact, she is shockingly flawed. Like, telling Palestinian protesters that if they want Donald Trump to win, they should just say that. Disgusting. Or her saying that she's open to an Israeli arms embargo and then walking it back is confusing at best, but pretty bad no matter how you spin it. In fact, there have been multiple opportunities for her to do more than just say, we need a ceasefire over the last 10 months, and she hasn't. And in fact, we do need to be protesting and applying pressure and making sure that our voices are heard, because it's not much of a bargaining chip once she's in office. And beyond that, I would never tell y'all how to vote because voting is such a deeply personal thing, but I would definitely never tell another person of color, much less a Palestinian, how to vote. If you want to sit this out, if you cannot vote for either of these people, I do understand. I get it. But using this as a reason to belittle and ridicule others as if you're morally superior for whatever choice you make is wrong. Using this as a reason to be anti-black is wrong. In fact, doing anything besides acknowledging that this election cycle is the definition of a catch-22 and then holding space for people wherever they land, especially people of color, is pretty tough. Before y'all jump me over my last post, make sure that y'all know all of those things. And also that my only point was y'all are sitting mighty high up on them horses, belittling people that you swear you listened to and swear you trusted when we're all sitting here trying to make the same impossible choices. This is graphic, but y'all need to hear it, so take a breath and buckle up. The other day, the IOF massacred 100 worshipers. These were people minding their business, surviving, and praying, and they were destroyed. And when I say destroyed, I don't just mean had their lives taken from them. I mean that so far, as of now, no one has found a complete set of human remains. And when I say no complete human remains, I mean that family members and loved ones are receiving plastic bags filled with pieces of human remains that weigh about what a person should weigh. This is on the heels of weeks of other attacks where the IOF has targeted schools that house largely women and children. This is on the heels of a video coming out where the IOF group SA'd a man. This is on the heels of over 300 days of brutality. And instead of talking about this and what we can do and where we can send aid and anything else, we are at each other's throat about this upcoming election. At the end of the day, no one is pro-G side, and we are all just trying to figure out how to get the one thing that we want, which is an end to these horrors. Now, we might not agree on a way forward because we are all caught in an impossible situation because American foreign policy is to align itself with violence and suffering and colonization. And that cannot be undone in the next 3 months before the election. It just can't. So we are all trying to figure out a way forward that will bring an end to this violence without betraying our morals. We need to put an end to all this back and forth bickering because we are losing the plot. Because there's a person out there receiving a bag full of body parts, hoping that at least one of those parts belonged to their loved one. And all this moral superiority and intellectual superiority and name calling and bickering is not going to fix that. It isn't. Stay focused. Hi, back again, wishing that y'all would look up the definition of words before you use them, or at least use them in the appropriate context. Because American centrism isn't caring about your rights and your well-being and the well-being of the rights and well-being of the people around you in the country that you live in. That's just being a citizen. Being an informed, globally aware, and empathetic citizen also means caring about other issues going on around the world and the rights and well-being of other people, especially when your country is hurting other people. That's called being a good, well-rounded person. You should care about both. But it is not Americentric to not want to forsake your rights to show solidarity with somebody else. And I feel like somebody who doesn't experience a lot of marginalization said this. In fact, I think people who don't experience a lot of marginalization say a lot of these nonsensical things because realistically, anybody who is marginalized does not want to be a martyr. And in fact, martyrdom actually doesn't get much of anything done because then you're not around to do anything. In fact, I know y'all aren't marginalized because what you're actually doing is sacrificing other people who are experiencing harm, violence, and oppression. Like, I care so deeply about what's going on around the world. I also care so deeply about what's going on with my neighbors or with my friends or with the people in my own communities or in my own country. Like, I care so much about what's going on in Palestine. I also care a lot about the Black maternal mortality rate in the United States as a Black woman who has recently given birth, and even before that, because I don't want Black women to die. And with that in mind, I try to move accordingly to the best of my ability because it's not Americentric to care about American policy, both foreign and domestic. I fear y'all have completely lost the plot, but while you're busy trying to find it again, please stop picking up words and just using them willy-nilly. I beg.
I feel like people who are so easily triggered by movie scenes maybe just skip theaters and watch movies at home, respectfully. There are a lot of things I want to say to this. But the biggest one is people shouldn't have to stay inside because of the concept of potentially being traumatized. People shouldn't have to give up movie-going experiences because the theater companies decided to give no warnings. The trigger warning was not enough. The trigger warning seemed like a hint at maybe one or two quick little flash scenes of Channing Tatum's past because we knew that he had been a bad guy before and was maybe supposed to be better now. And it seemed like he was in a cult. I really assumed cults in this movie. But the thing is, the plot twist shouldn't be violence against women. People keep joking about how It Ends With Us is advertising itself as a cute little rom-com. This movie, Blink Twice, was also advertising itself not as a cute little rom-com, but a silly little horror film. It seemed like there was going to be a sci-fi horror movie addition to it. It seemed like it was being hinted. And then it turned out that the plot twist, spoiler alert warning ahead, was just white billionaires using their power to abuse women and then take their memories of it away. That's not a plot twist. That's real life. So, I do not think that people understand that even if Blink Twice had a trigger warning, which it did, it had a trigger warning. We should all be okay with it because it had a trigger warning. The trigger warning was A, only on screen for 60 whole seconds before the movie got started. So if you decided to go to the bathroom right before the movie started, you would miss the trigger warning. B, the trigger warning was only out for a few days to the public before the movie came out. I think it came out on like Wednesday or Thursday. And C, the trigger warning said nothing. It said nothing. The trigger warning was just a safety net for Zoe Kravitz because of all the shit Blake Lively's been going through recently. And no one can convince me otherwise, because here's what the trigger warning says. Trigger warning, we are proud to finally share Blink Twice with audiences in theaters worldwide this week. Blink Twice is a psychological thriller about the abuse of power. While this is a fictionalized movie, it contains mature themes and depictions of violence, including sexual violence. This may be upsetting or triggering for some viewers. For resources that offer support, visit blinktwiceresources.com. Spoiler warning, but this is a movie where the plot twist is sexual violence. The plot twist is rape. The plot twist of this film is that these women who are having the time of their lives on this island, and they're having drugs, and they're going swimming, and they're living the life every night, are being violently, aggressively raped. And they don't know for how long, and they don't know what happened until they have snake venom put in their system. And then they remember what happened and lose it, because it's that bad, and it's that graphic, and it's that awful. And all we got was this. All we got as the audience was this, because the plot twist was the sexual abuse of women. Not only the sexual abuse of women, heinous sexual abuse that men are laughing at. And that's the plot twist. And then the other plot twist, spoiler alert, is that the main girl, Frida, had been there before and couldn't remember anything from being there before. So that means that technically it could happen again. So I would like to make it really clear that this is the wimpiest, most bitch-ass PG version of a trigger warning that could possibly be released for this film, because I can handle a lot. I can handle a lot in films. I have seen films that use sexual violence towards women as a plot device. I have seen films that have graphic scenes. I have seen films that do shit like this, and I have read books that do shit like this, and I listen to true crime about this shit, and this was worse. This was not enough of a fucking trigger warning, and the only reason we even got the trigger warning was because of the issue with It Ends With Us 2 weeks ago. I'm not mad at this commenter, I'd like to make it clear, but this commenter agrees with me on how scary the movie is. And a lot of people were telling me that I shouldn't have gone to see the movie, because if I'm easily triggered, I shouldn't have seen the movie. I'm not easily triggered. That's the issue. And also, one more thing, very important. If you went to the bathroom while the trigger warning was playing, you missed the trigger warning. If you looked down to open your snacks right before a movie starts playing, you missed the trigger warning. If you came into the movie a tiny bit late because you were running behind on your schedule, you missed the trigger warning. If you are dyslexic, 60 seconds isn't enough to read that trigger warning, because honestly, I'm not dyslexic, but sometimes when I know that there's a time limit for how quickly I have to read something, I skip words, and then I have to go back and read it again. So you missed the fucking trigger warning. The trigger warning was nothing. People are not getting it. People are not hearing what I am saying. I am not sensitive to triggers. I am not a particularly sensitive person when it comes to triggers. So long as there are not ghosts in a movie, so long as there is not supposed to be a demon haunting someone, I am good. I can watch it. I am okay with gore. I am okay with essay. I am okay with graphic depictions of things. This was different. This was not the same as any other movie that is just supposed to be a thriller, just supposed to be horror, just supposed to be about murdering people. This was different. My entire point about how trigger warnings needed to be made is because this was so different and so psychologically scarring that if you look up Blink Twice, aside from my video, which does, I believe, come up first on everything, you will see multiple other people discussing how they were not prepared for what they saw, because this movie decided that the entire plot twist of what they were going to do was going to be showing that the woman had no control in the situation. We're being violently assaulted every night. The worse the violent assault was every night, the more they would forget about those graphic violent assaults. And then we find out that the main character has been there before and doesn't even remember meeting Channing Tatum's character. Which means that the things that he had done to her the previous time around were so bad that the memory forgetting potion made her forget ever meeting him. This was different. I have seen Promising Young Women. I have seen John Wick. I have seen many movies that are violent, that are aggressive. I've seen Ready or Not. I assumed this would be a Ready or Not kind of scenario where poor girl goes to an island with a bunch of rich people and they try to murder her. I was prepared for it to be a cult trying to murder her. I was prepared for a kind of Midsummer thing. And mind you, Midsummer warned us. This was different.
The biggest difference between the Princess Diaries book and the Princess Diaries movie is that Mia's dad is not only alive in the books, but he's alive and well. He's a cancer survivor, specifically testicular cancer, which Mia talks about often. She's continuously like, he may only have one of those testicle things, but he's fine. I'm probably gonna have to bleep myself out for that. So the reason that in the movie they killed Mia's dad, and I'm sorry for talking about movies, but like this is important in the Princess Diaries world, is because Julie Andrews wanted to be in the Princess Diaries movie, and they're like, hey Meg, so Julie Andrews wants to play the grandma, but to be able to have Julie Andrews play the grandma, we'd probably have to kill the dad. And Meg Cabot was like, kill him dead. He's fine. He doesn't need to exist. It's fine. Kill him. So that's why the movie is so different from the books. But in the book, in the Princess Diaries book, Mia Thermopolis' dad is not only alive, he's not only well, he's keeping a complete secret from his daughter that he's actually the prince of a country, not king, prince. Mia never becomes queen in the Princess Diaries books. She becomes princess regnant because they aren't a big enough democracy, big enough royal family, whatever, to have a king and queen, so they just have princes and princesses of differing degrees. So Mia would just always be a princess, but she'd be a higher level ruling princess as things go on. So Mia's dad is the prince regnant. And Mia has always known that he's a politician, but she had no idea that the man was actually a prince, because they always kept her away from Genovia because they didn't want Mia to be the queen or the princess that she later had to become, because her dad had this specific form of cancer that took away his ability to father any more children in the old-fashioned way. So then he and his ex-girlfriend, ex-baby mama, Helen Thermopolis, are like, oh, we're gonna have to teach our 14-year-old daughter, who's like the most awkward person in the entire universe, how to be a princess. And her dad's like super capitalistic about it. Mia's like, I refuse to be a princess, which is a ridiculous thing that's ever happened. He's like, how much? And she's like, what? And he's like, how much do I have to pay you per week or pay in the Wales in your name per day to get you to be a princess? There's no choice in this matter. I'll pay you. This will be your job. And Mia, being the 14-year-old that she is like, I want $20 a week and also pay the Wales $100 a day, but she's really bad at math. So she's like, $100 a day. Oh man, by the time I'm 18 and ready to go and join Greenpeace myself, I'll have saved all the whales because I'll have put millions of dollars down. And then she did the actual math and she's like, I'll put thousands of dollars down. It's a delightful scene. Highly recommend. But her dad truly loves her, is truly afraid of his mother, Grandmere, who's like the scariest character in the Princess Diaries books besides Lily, and is still madly in love with Mia Thermopolis' mom. He's so madly in love with Helen Thermopolis because Helen Thermopolis is, first and foremost, a babe and a badass, okay? But it's like one of the funniest parts in the entire book series that he just is continuously like, so like, how's your mom doing? She good? Your mom's good? That's good. Oh, she's dating? Cool. Hey, I'm gonna stop over the house tonight, kiddo, and hang out with you. And he's really bad at hanging out with kids, but he like clearly loves his daughter, but he's so bad at being like an adult man near children because he's the prince of the country. And also, the most important part about Mia Thermopolis' father, besides all of what I just said, is that the man is a whore. And also she compares him to Picard from Star Trek a lot, but mostly that the man is a whore. He has a new girlfriend every single week. We never actually learn the girlfriend's names unless they're like famous reporters or something, but the man is a hoe. And I respect him for that. Because if I were a prince, I would also be a little bit of a hoe. I'm not gonna lie. But also, it took me a ridiculously long time to realize that Mia Thermopolis' dad was even hot because she's always like talking about what a babe her mom is, bombshell her mom is, and she with her dad, she's just like, oh, he's a new girlfriend every week. Oh, he's so like, he's flirting with my teacher again. This is so annoying of him that I just went, yeah, dads, they flirt. It's annoying. That must be really embarrassing when the teacher turns him down. It didn't hit me that all these people were into it because he's a hot prince. It took me until I was 28 to realize this. Okay, back. Here's the thing. The biggest issue that I have with Blink Twice's trigger warning, and the biggest issue that I will continue to have with Blink Twice's trigger warning, is the use of language that they put into it. Because here's the thing. When it comes to language in general, it's really important the words that you use. If you scramble the wrong words together, you're creating a completely different sentence than you had wanted to. And the way that they form the Blink Twice trigger warning is so despicable because they knew what they were doing. And people keep saying, and people keep commenting in all of my videos on Blink Twice and Blink Twice's trigger warning, well, they had a trigger warning. How long did you want it to be? Because I say that it's a shot in the dark because it's only 60 seconds. And they're like, well, how much longer should it need to be? 60 seconds is more than enough time to have it read out loud to you. You should be okay with this and everything that you went into because you signed up for it. You read the trigger warning. It said that there was sexual violence. You should have known better. So I want to bring up a really fun, interesting, cool fact, okay? The movie Blink Twice did not just use sexual violence, it used graphic sexual violence. And if you want to know the difference between these two things, I would like to bring up a very old movie. And when I say very old, I mean the 90s. And when I say very old, I also mean it as a joke because I am 29. But this is a movie that's been out of the zeitgeist for a hot second, so not a lot of people will know about it. And I'm talking about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But not only am I specifically talking about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I'm actually talking about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 2, the sequel, where the parents get shrunk. And why am I bringing up Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 2, where the parents get shrunk? Because in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 2, there's a scene. And in that scene, all the kids have been wondering where the heck their parents are. Their parents are gone. Where could their parents be? They don't know. So what do? What's the only logical thing that kids in like a Disney-style movie would do? They throw a house party. And it's great. And they're having a great time. And the daughter of the main character who's throwing this house party is so excited and so happy because her crush is at this party. And while she is in the kitchen getting drinks ready, specifically sodas, getting sodas ready, her dad is watching her while he's sitting on the kitchen island, or like standing on the kitchen island, doing his absolute best not to get toppled by someone because he is roughly the size of like this, or maybe more like this. He's like roughly this size, okay? So like he could easily get squashed. So he's trying real hard not to get squashed while he's spying on his kids because his kids are in big trouble when he grows again. And also, he's trying real hard to, like, you know, get his kids to also realize that he's been shrunk so that he can get their help to unshrink him. But then, this girl, her crush comes into the room, and he comes up, and he talks to her, and they're talking, and they're flirting, and he's looking at her, and she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and she's looking at him. And then he lays one on her. He kisses her right in the mouth, and she immediately backs away. And he's like, oh my God, why would you do that? And he's like, what? And she's like, you didn't ask my permission first. And he goes, well, why would I ask your permission? No one ever asks me to ask their permission. Girls like it better when you don't ask their permission. And she goes, not this girl. I wanted to be asked for permission. I wanted consent. Which, interestingly enough, is like one of the first times I ever remember seeing the concept of consent in movies. And this is a movie not only from the 90s, but a movie where any other film would have just been like, oh my God, he kissed me. And instead she's going, why wouldn't you ask my permission before you kissed me? That was my first kiss. That's not okay. And he's like, well, all the girls like it. And she's like, I didn't like it. That's not okay. And do you know what that is? It's sexual violence. Yeah. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 2, where the parents get shrunk, actually contains a moment of sexual violence. And then the thing that they use in the trigger warning that was so well written is that there are also abuses of power and authority. And you know what movie has abuses of power and authority and sexual violence all at once? Actually, the film 50 Shades Darker, not 50 Shades of Grey, the sequel to 50 Shades Darker. And in 50 Shades Darker, you know what happens? Well, Anastasia is working for this new guy, Jack Hyde, and she's an editorial assistant intern person, okay? And she's so excited and she's so happy with her job. And her boss is like, hey, you have to book tickets for us to go to New York to go to like this book festival thing. And she's like, oh my God, that's so exciting. And then her boyfriend is like, I have a bad feeling about this guy. And he's being actually abusing his power right there, because he's like, I don't want you to go on a trip with this guy, and he's like being aggressive and possessive, and you can absolutely say that, yes, but I'm not talking about Christian Grey. No, I'm talking about Jack Hyde, because you know what Jack Hyde does? Anna goes, I'm so sorry, it's so last minute, I actually cannot go on this trip with you to New York. My apologies, but I'll keep being here, and you can call me at any time so I can get you whatever you need while you're there in New York, okay? And he says, no, not okay, and he starts talking down to her. He completely changes personalities. And by completely changing personalities, the shark eyes come out. And when the shark eyes come out, he locks the door. He's still talking to her. She's uncomfortable. She makes it clear that she's uncomfortable. He's telling her that she's not doing enough while she's working for him. She brings up the fact that she's actually doing 90% of his job for him, and that should be more than enough since she's like barely getting paid. And he goes, no, you should be doing more. And she goes, what more could I possibly do? And then he leans her up against the wall. When she tries to leave, she literally gets up. She's going to run. He chases after her. He presses her against the wall. She's saying, no, no, no. And he is like, yeah, no, you should like it. If you're gonna date someone who's older than you and super gross, he's talking about her boyfriend, Christian Grey, you should at least do it with someone who makes you smarter. Don't worry, I'm good at it. And then he starts trying to assault her, but her dad is an ex-Marine. So she breaks his finger, knees him in the balls, runs out of there. Good for her. Well done. You know what that is? An abuse of power. You know what else it is? Sexual violence. You know what I was expecting from Blink Twice? That. Because all it said was that there was sexual violence and that there was an abuse of power. And every single news article that came out about this movie having a trigger warning brought up the fact that it had to have the trigger warning, and that they were literally probably only doing it because in the movie It Ends With Us, everyone got really, really, really mad that Blake Lively's movie didn't have a trigger warning because of the domestic violence. So Zoe Kravitz was just doing that in response to keep herself safe in case people start trying to talk shit about her too. So she put out a trigger warning about a movie that for a solid half hour just goes really, really deep, not only into sexual violence, but graphic sexual violence. Graphic sexual violence with the use of drugs. The girls got drugged, they got roofied, and not only did they get roofied, they were actually given a perfume that made them forget everything that happened. And the worse that their abuse was, the more that they would forget. So they'd wake up in the morning with bruises on themselves, and they would just be told this new story about the things that happened the night before. And then they'd believe them, except they wouldn't believe them because they'd be really uncomfortable and scared and not sure what to do. And then we're seeing some of the worst sexual violence I've ever seen. In this movie, literally recommended that people in Australia dress up like the characters, female characters, wearing all white, to go and see this film.
All they needed to do was use the word graphic sexual violence, and people would have been a little more afraid. You know what else would have been really helpful? If they let the themes of the movie be in the trailers of the movie, instead of letting the graphic sexual violence be a fun little surprise at the end of the film. Because it wasn't a fun surprise. It was triggering. It was triggering even for people who maybe have not gone through those things before. And we'll discuss how they could have handled their trailers better in the next video, because this is already an 8-minute and 32-second video, and there's still more that I could say, because people keep telling me that I'm easily triggered. But here's the thing, I watch Criminal Minds, I watch Law & Order SVU, I watch a lot of shit. I thought I could handle sexual violence, because I've seen sexual violence literally all the time. I've lived through it, so I thought it would be fine. And it wasn't. Anyways, I still say that it was a good movie. You know what would have made the movie better? Fucking advertising it for what it fucking was, so that people aren't walking out of that movie triggered for the next 6 months. Not kidding. Not exaggerating. Mean it with all my heart. Thanks. The thing that's driving me absolutely nuts right now is the fact that when I talk about Blink Twice and I talk about the fact that the trigger warning should have been more, it should have been better, it should have been better written, and that there shouldn't have been this twist that there was, which is that the twist, spoiler alert, is just aggressive, graphic, sexual assault for a solid half hour. When I say that this shouldn't have happened and it shouldn't be something that has to keep happening in media, because it does, it keeps happening in media, it keeps being the fun surprise at the end of the film, people keep telling me that I should have known, because the trigger warning says that there's sexual violence and abuse of power. And as I've said in other videos, yeah, the trigger warning says sexual violence, abuse of power. But basically any movie these days, any TV show these days could very easily say that there's sexual violence, that there's abuse of power, that something terrible is going to go on. Because here's the thing, there's an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will Smith's character decides that he's going to pretend to marry a woman because she told him that she would never have sex until she was married. So they get married, and then they have sex, and she loses her virginity to the man that she thinks is her husband, and then it turns out that no, they never got married. It was not a real marriage. It was not a real wedding. So he literally raped her. That's considered rape. Her consent was only if she was sleeping with her husband, not some random dude who was pretending to be her husband. That is sexual violence. That is abuse of power. It's not abuse of power in that he was like a full-figured boss of her, but it wasn't. Okay, people are gonna disagree with me that it's an abuse of power, and I really shouldn't have said that because it's technically not abuse of power, but also it is. It is in a certain way, because he was fucking with her mind. He was fucking with her mind so that she would marry him, pretend to marry him, so that she would pretend to marry him so that he could have sex with her and never talk to her again. And it's awful. It's awful in so many ways. So that's the kind of thing that you expect, because you don't see the sex on screen when that happens. You don't see the sex on screen often in the episodes of Criminal Minds that we see, in the episodes of Law & Order SVU that we see. The only show or movie where you really see that stuff is like 50 Shades of Grey, and I've talked about the sexual violence in 50 Shades of Grey, specifically between Jack Hyde and Anna, not between Christian and Anna. I don't care if you don't like 50 Shades of Grey. That's not what this video is about. Anyways, here's the thing. Blink Twice, and this is gonna be my no, it's not. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to us, because that would make me a liar, and I'm not a liar most of the time. Blink Twice is a film that centered the entire thing on the fact, the entire film, the entire plot, on the fact that there was going to be a twist. My face was really melty. On the fact that there was going to be a twist, and we weren't going to see the twist coming. So a lot of people are telling me that I should have seen the twist coming, because the movie was giving Epstein's Island. It was giving Epstein's Island. How could I not tell what it was from the trailers? Because it was so clearly giving Epstein's Island. No, not to everyone. I'm glad that there were people out there who watched the trailers and went, oh, it's
giving Epstein. It's giving Epstein. Because when I saw the trailer, I saw the similarities between this film and Glass Onion, the Knives Out sequel. I saw the similarities between this film and Ready or Not, the movie that's just a campy little, like, culty thriller about a girl who marries a super rich dude to get into a super rich family because she really truly loves this dude and she really truly just wants a family. It's all she wants. She wants to have a family because she's a foster kid. And then they're playing a game and they have to, like, choose a game to be able to, like, properly marry into the family. And the game that she chooses is hide and go seek. And so the entire family has to murder her. And you know the interesting thing about that? That's the twist of the film. It's the twist of the film, and it was still shown in every trailer. It was told to us in the trailers. So when people went into this film, there wasn't really a trigger warning necessary because people knew what to expect because it was in the trailers. It was in the first 5 minutes of the movie where we see the flashback to a bajillion years ago when the crazy weird aunt is getting married and everyone's trying to murder her husband because he chose hide and go seek, and she's begging them, please don't murder him, and he's begging the kids, please don't let them murder me, and the kids go, he's right here. So we see right away what this life is, what this family is, what she's marrying into. We know what to expect immediately. My phone decided to tell me, didn't know if it was still filming, but we know what to expect immediately in Knives Out. We know what to expect immediately, for the most part, in Promising Young Woman. Promising Young Woman is a movie that fucks with you because Emerald Fennell, the director and writer of that movie, literally says, I chose every guy in media who you say you would ask to hold your drink at a party, and I put him into my film, and I put him into my film as a part of the patriarchy who hurts women. That's what she did, and she did it well. And people say that that movie was mismarketed. But you know why people said that that movie was mismarketed? Because there wasn't enough violence against men. Because it seemed like this movie was going to be something where this woman, like, is pretending to be drunk at bars and then men take her home and she murders them. But instead, she's just literally messing with their brains to be like, never do this again. Never do this again. Other people could be like me. And Blink Twice is not like that. Blink Twice wants the twist to be the assault. And then, instead of just having the twist be they're getting assaulted, the twist becomes they're getting assaulted and we're going to force you to see them remember. We're going to force you to see them remember so graphically, so violently, that their noses bleed because of the poison that they have to drink to be able to remember. And then they go into this blank space of fear and anger, and it's different for each individual woman how they handle it. But I think my personal favorite is this one girl whose name I am forgetting, but she is the girl who created an app in the movie. She created an app, that's why she got invited to the island. They're celebrating her having created this app that's about astrology, and she's so excited about it, and she's so proud of it because she believes in astrology and she believes in the power of, like, basically the stars and people. And she has this gorgeous speech right before she remembers where she's drunk and she's crying and she's talking to the girls much in like the drunk girls in the bathroom type of way, and she's saying, women never stick up for each other, but I love all of you girls, and if I ever found out that anybody hurt you, I would do anything. I would do anything for you because I will stick with you, because that's just society's fucking fault and it's not ours and it's not yours, and I'm always here for you. Girls should stick together. And then she remembers, and the acting is phenomenal. It's impeccable. Her face goes blank, the fear goes in there, the anger goes in there, and she just starts aggressively beginning to hurt the man who did that to her until she gets murdered herself. And it was such great film work, and it was such great acting, and it was such great storytelling. But it also wasn't, because people who went into this theater did not know that they were signing up when they said that they were okay with seeing a bit of sexual violence on screen, which is again in every movie that exists. It's literally in the fucking Beethoven movies. It's in fucking Honey, I Shrunk the Fucking Kids. It's in everything. We didn't all know that we were signing up for it. We didn't know that we were signing up to basically watch snuff. It was basically a snuff film with the shit that they showed. Because if we did, A, most people would not have gone. And B, the people who did go would have been able to discuss this in a much more open way of why this film is important. And honestly, I think it is. But it would be a lot more important and a lot better and a lot more interesting if we didn't have to see everything that happened. I think I'm over time. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Are we really complaining that a movie has a trigger warning because it's not good enough? Most movies don't even require them. Most movies don't even have them. They aren't required. Yes, tit grab, we are. I understand that you, as someone who decided that they wanted to put their name on a social media platform as 2 words together, and those 2 words being tit grab, might not understand the concept of why that trigger warning was a bullshit cop-out by the media, because they were really concerned that they were also going to be called out if they didn't have a trigger warning because of the whole mess with It Ends With Us. But it was a bullshit little piece of, well, we put a trigger warning in, you should have known, you signed up for this. But only after they released their trailers and after they released their press and after they did everything, and they put the trigger warning after you bought the ticket. So you bought the ticket, you go into the movie, you see the trigger warning, and the trigger warning is just a couple of words jumbled together, hoping that you'll say, well, there was a trigger warning, I should have known. But they used terrible language and terrible concept and terrible idea of what it even is to have a trigger warning and why a trigger warning would be necessary for a movie that literally puts you in from the eyes of the victim. The eyes of the victim as they are being assaulted. It was so interesting and so much fun. So yeah, I'm complaining. I'm gonna keep complaining. I'm gonna complain for fucking ever. Thanks so much, tit grab.
When you read The Princess Diaries, Mia Thermopolis is obsessed with connecting the dots for things. So Meg Cabot at the beginning of each book seems to choose what her theme is going to be, and then she seems, I don't know how she does it, I've never looked into it, but she'll I'm assuming, have these different pieces of research that Mia Thermopolis would learn at this time period in her schooling to talk about and compare to the rest of her life. So one book, she's obsessed with autism and how autism seems to be a factor in each of the people of her life, okay? And now she thinks Lily's autistic, and how she thinks she's autistic, and how she thinks Michael's autistic. And then in my personal favorite example, Mia is obsessed with this chemical that's here, so when you smell your soulmate's not specifically soulmate, but someone that you're really compatible with, they'll smell better to you than they will to other people. So that's why Mia always smells Michael's neck and is so obsessed with the smell of Michael's neck. And then she'll do research in Iraq and Afghanistan and how the women there are treated. So Mia will be obsessed with how women there are treated. And then Mia has this entire thing about how if she brings a specific type of snail back to Genovia, and just dumps a bunch of those snails into Genovia, their algae problem will go away. And the entire book is just her fretting that maybe she was wrong about the algae problem, about the snails solving it, until the end of the book when the snails finally start doing their job and eating the algae, because the algae belonged in a Brazilian sea, a Brazilian ecosystem, and it had been brought over, so she just brought over the snails that solved the algae problem for that same Brazilian ecosystem. And it's just all these tiny weird little factors where you're oh wow, she must have read a singular article and done a bunch of extra work on it after when she decided that she wanted to use it for the story. And that's how my brain works. When I talked about the ancient Greece home structure, I learned about that in my junior year of high school.
from one of my favorite teachers, who was also at one point one of my least favorite teachers. When I talk about like the concept of woman talking being important, I did learn that from Bridgerton, but I also learned it from history class. I took a class on the concept of the American teenager and how that was invented, because the American teenager wasn't actually a thing until the 1950s, which is why West Side Story is such an important like story and concept, because teenagers were not invented until the ability to be a teenager was invented. And yeah, my brain works in just that specific way where I'm just like saving these weird little details of knowledge until I have something that I can compare them to. And I don't know why they're in there until they're useful. It's both great and awful. It literally says sexual violence in the trigger warning. Okay, 1 second. Let's read the trigger warning for Blink Twice together. Trigger warning. We are proud to finally share Blink Twice with audiences in theaters worldwide this week. Blink Twice is a psychological thriller about the abuse of power. While this is a fictionalized movie, it contains mature themes and depictions of violence, including sexual violence. This may be upsetting or triggering for some viewers. For resources that offer support, visit Blink Twice. Now, when we are in school, we learn about this thing called semantics. And semantics are really important because it's like why language is important, why words mean words, things, right? So let's look at the definition of semantics. Semantics, noun, the branch of linguistics and logic concerned with meaning. There are a number of branches and sub-branches of semantics, including formal semantics, which studies the logical aspects of meaning, such as sense, reference, implication, and logical form. Lexical semantics, which studies word meanings and word relations, and conceptual semantics, which studies the cognitive structure of meaning. The meaning of a word, phrase, sentence, or a text would be what semantics means. So, what does sexual violence mean, semantically? Sexual violence is any harmful or unwanted sexual act or attempt to obtain a sexual act through violence or coercion, or an act directed against a person's sexuality without their consent by any individual, regardless of their relationship to the victim. This includes forced engagement in sexual acts, attempted or completed, and may be physical, psychological, or verbal. It occurs in times of peace and armed conflict situations, is widespread, and is considered to be one of the most traumatic, pervasive, and most common human rights violations, okay? Now the interesting thing here is, if you put the word graphic in front of sexual violence, it means a different thing. Because right now, when you just have sexual violence, it could mean you're talking to a guy at a party, and he decides that he wants to kiss you, but you didn't want him to kiss you. So you go, whoa, dude, no. But he had grabbed you and laid one on you, and you had not been able to say no. It had been without your permission. That is sexual violence. You know what graphic means? You know what graphic sexual violence or graphic violence means? Graphic violence is a term used to describe media that depicts violence in a realistic or vivid manner. Graphic sexual violence is a type of graphic violence that depicts sexual violence in a realistic or vivid manner. Some examples of graphic sexual violence in media include image-based sexual violence. This is a non-consensual creation, distribution, or sharing of sexual or intimate images, videos, or texts. This can include the use of coercion, deception, hacking, secret recording, or trafficking to obtain the images. Sexual violence in media. This can include the use of sexually explicit images or posters that are visible to others. Now, some negative consequences of graphic sexual violence in media include discomfort and normalization. Seeing sexual violence can make people numb to it. Now, I just really want to, one more time, go into the Blink Twice trigger warning. We are proud to finally share Blink Twice with audiences in theaters worldwide this week. Blink Twice is a psychological thriller about the abuse of power. While this is a fictionalized movie, it contains mature themes and depictions of violence, including sexual violence. This may be upsetting or triggering for some viewers. The last half hour of the film has the main character realizing that she is not really on the island of her own free will. It has her realizing that her thoughts are being taken away from her every night. It has her realizing and then remembering after she drinks literal poison, literal snake venom, as the only way to get her memories back, that she has been, for the weeks and weeks that she has been there, physically, mentally, and emotionally abused and sexually assaulted. And then we see the graphic sexual violence, including but not limited to a few seconds where we see it from her perspective. That is not sexual violence, which can again be a guy kissing you and you saying, no, but he goes, I can't believe, this is something you wanted. No, that's not what happened here. She is being assaulted physically every night, and we learn it with her. That's not sexual violence, that's graphic sexual violence. And one of the main reasons that this is a problem is because not only is it traumatizing for the people who are seeing it, but then people, specifically as a society, are becoming numb to it in media to the point that people are trying to say it says sexual violence in the trigger warning. It does, but there are other words because semantics are important.